Welcome back to Prof E Plays. I'm Prof E, and we're picking up here with Cepheus Universal with the story of Wilbur Orla. So, just as a reminder, in terms of what happened last time, this happens to be, I think, last time I started with talk about how it'd been 3 weeks since I had played in real life, but I try to time things out so that there's something of a buffer in my release schedule. Uh, well, I'm building that buffer up right now because the last time I played in real life was like 3 days ago, as opposed to a week ago, which was the last episode. So at this point, I don't need as much reminding as probably you do. So last time we didn't actually do a complete mission. Instead, we just got given a mission. That mission was so just to flesh things out. We are on Masuyama, which is the capital of the subsector that we find ourselves in. Here, what we found out in terms of world encounters is that there's a political revolution happening that's causing chaos. Specifically, we figured out that it is a robot uprising. However, our own robot, London, was not particularly interested in being involved, so that's good. So this is somewhat localized. It's not huge. It's not disrupting everything, but it is nonetheless disrupting what's happening in major cities. Did not stop us from finding a patron, a merchant. I did not give the merchant a name, I don't think, in the last episode, so I'm going to give them a name. Wayne Brock is the name. I picked that off camera. Thank you, random name generators. And so Wayne Brock is the merchant, and what he wants us to do, right, is to explore a moon or asteroid specifically related to a crime gang. I decided this means that what he really wants us to do is to see if there's a base for pirates along his path, his trading path. So I don't remember whether I showed this last time or not, but I'm going to go ahead and show it just to give a sense of what's happening here. All right, so here is my map. Right, so we are on Masuyama, which is here on kind of the far eastern side. Now, the far eastern side of the. Sorry. Another thing is that sometimes I'll sit down and I'll record more than one episode of like my two different series going on. I just realized that in my last episode of Dreadfair, which I just recorded like 15 minutes ago, um, I had said this was on the western shore, but then I drew it as if it's on the eastern shore of an island. Whatever. Okay, so in any case, I'm tempted to say, oh, I'm sure there'll be plenty of comments, but no, I'm sure that neither of the views that that got are going to last more than 10 seconds. They probably never, right? So we have Masuyama here, right? So the path is between Masuyama and this unnamed planet up here where there is a Navy base as well as a level B, a type B starport, which is a pretty good starport. Like they're not going to build big ships there, but nonetheless, it is significant in terms of um, their ability to provide various amenities, repairs, and the like, right? So it makes sense. So there would be some kind of travel between the two, which would naturally be something a merchant would do. That's what you do. You travel as a merchant, right? But he believes and wants us to investigate. Right? He believes that there's a pirate base here in sector 507, which I'm calling the Aledhan sector. There is no starport here, right? So it's just like a planet. Uh, we know that it is populated. Now, what we know about it in terms of I did actually flesh this out some off screen. So we know about Adelana. Let me go through my notes here. Aledon. Aledon, not Alama. I'm mixing together Masawayama and Aledon. So Aledon, we know about it. Right? Uh, so I rolled up so first, just physical facts about it. It is a little bit smaller than Earth, so gravity is about 10% lighter there than it is here. Uh, it has a standard atmosphere, but tainted, which means you will need some kind of breathing apparatus to be able to breathe. Pressure's okay though, right? So some kind of mask is important. I decided the climate of it then is probably going to be fairly temperate, very Earth-like as far as that goes. Big difference though from Earth is that it is like roughly 90% water, which means there are only a few small islands on this planet, which is where the tens of thousands of people who live here are concentrated. They live under a representative democracy with a relatively low law level, so heavy weapons are not allowed. Basically, everything else is. It is not uh, like any kind of travel warning or anything like that. Potentially a pirate base. No specific travel codes, so that is trade codes, which suggests this probably would not end up being someplace they would stop along their trade route, especially if there's no starport. They're just kind of flying through the sector. My guess is probably what's happening here. They do not have a starport, but they do have a gas giant. Okay? And so a gas giant is something that's good for refueling. So they probably stop here to refuel because they can make the jump here. It's one, two, three. They can do it in three jumps as opposed to if they went around the long, it would be one, two, three, four, five jumps. So that's actually a pretty nice thing they can do if they stop here to refuel. Okay. Now, okay, what else? Trying to think of other paths they follow. They could, if you have a jump two, you could jump here to here, then to either of these and here. So you could do bam, bam, bam. That would be possible. So either way, it's going to be three. Okay, so they want this to be a clear path, is the thing. And they don't think it is a clear path. They think that there's a pirate base here. So it is our job to go and investigate to see whether there is, in fact, a pirate base here. Other things we know about Aledhan, I think I introduced last time this idea of having a cultural and social characteristics as well. So I rolled up the cultural and social characteristics. Now, the only thing that I'm doing here is I'm noting down if there's anything unusual. So there's a pretty wide range of what's kind of normal. I want to say it's like 5 to 9 or something like that. If you roll 5 to 9 on 2d6, then you end up with just kind of an average statistic for that. So the one thing that stood out here is that it's unusually honest. So I was trying to think about what this would be like given the physical characteristics as well as what I know the culture characteristics comprising honesty. So I'm saying that Aladon has a strong islander culture. Makes sense. We live on islands. People are generally uninterested in tech. It's a fairly low tech level. It's a tech level five, uh, beyond what's necessary for their own survival. Right. So, so here it's not going to be super primitive either. It's not like super primitive world. You do have to have some kind of breathing apparatus to live here, but this is really kind of. I imagine people came here to live in a simple, self-sufficient way, are not really that interested in a lot of technology. This would also explain why they don't have a starport. Yeah. They pride them, and also why no trade codes, right? So they're not interested in trade. They can produce for themselves. They can fish or what have you, right? So they pride themselves on being brutally honest. Its moon creates weak tides because it is very far away from the planet. So I imagine there is a moon here, but the moon is going to be fairly small and also fairly far away, right? So we have only weak tides. In that moon is where we think this pirate base might potentially be. Now, it makes sense the pirates would leave the people on the planet itself alone because they really don't have anything worth stealing, right? So that's what I'm imagining is happening here. So that is Aladon. Gather up my map. The other thing in terms of setup you need to do is we've introduced you to the planet we are going to be going to. Now, I made the note before we had a problem, and that's why the last time we were designing the ship, we do have this problem that our crew alone is not really equipped to run any kind of ship. We don't have a pilot, being one significant thing. We don't have an engineer, being another significant thing. We don't have a medic, which, while not strictly necessary, is generally a good idea to have a medic on your ship. We don't have one. Right? So we're missing three significant roles here. So I'm going to have to introduce some new crewmates that I made using the Cepheus Universal uh, is it planned generation? I forget exactly what they call it, but it's a non-random method of generation. So I didn't do term by term like I did with the original three, because I need them to fill very specific roles. So I used the character generation process that allowed me to do that. I did introduce a little bit of randomness in there, a couple places. One was with they give you a stat array, right? But you have a selection of four different stat arrays from one, basically, of one of them that keeps everything super average. You're just slightly above on one, slightly below on another. There's another where it's much more dispersed. So you have like a maximum and a minimum, as well as some that are in between. Right, so I took those, I believe it was four or five different arrays, rolled a die to decide which of the arrays fell for each of these new crew members. I also randomized. I selected their abilities in order to make sure they were well suited for their own role. But I did randomize. There's a point where you have a couple different lists that you can either roll on or choose from. I decided to choose one of the lists and then roll on it to figure out what their random abilities would be. So each have one level of a skill that was somewhat randomly determined based on those lists. Uh, and I think that that is that. Okay, so other things you need to know. So we're going to be planning to go and check that moon. Um, oh, one other thing. I had to make some changes to the ship because I did some math wrong. Um, I also realized we need fuel processors if we're going to be able to make it anywhere because we only have enough fuel storage space for one jump of 2 parsecs, which with how sparsely populated this particular subsector is, I mean, you'd be stuck. Like, there's nowhere you can get to in 2 parsecs, with the exception of just like one planet to what I'm thinking of as galactic south. That's it. Everywhere else, I can't get to from the capital without having some kind of fuel processors. So I had to have fuel processors. Unfortunately, that meant then I didn't have enough tonnage to also have turrets. So we're going to be taking an unarmed ship to see if there are pirates on a moon of a not super low tech, but a moderately low tech planet that isn't particularly interested in any kind of technology. That's what we're doing. And we're going to have to use our fuel processors to get there, even because we cannot jump far enough to get there without using our fuel processors. See, this is one of the issues you run into with these small ships. I also had to make another adjustment as well, right? So I had to get rid of the turrets. I also had to get rid of one of the staterooms. So we now have 3 staterooms, which means because we have a crew of 6 now, our original 3 plus 3 additional crew members, because we need a pilot, an engineer, and a medic. Because of that, everybody's going to be sharing a room. So everybody gets a roommate. All right. So let's go ahead with what we've got then. All right. So I'm going to make some notes here. Let me pull out my paper. So this is our session. I like to date my sessions. I'm not going to share the date because then I don't want to reveal too much. But in any case, so our new crew members. Let me share these people with you. So for those that where this might be, you might need a refresher on who we normally have. We have Wilbur Orla is the main character, but not specifically so. Wilbur Orla has a history as a fixer. So is very good at negotiation. Weirdly, his really strong ability is in forgery, right? So he's actually probably well suited toward criminal kind of enterprises. So who knows? Maybe very much like happened um, with Hazel running into uh, what's his name? You know, the big bad that we have never actually interacted with. Yeah, Emerson Bryant. That's it. Um, Maybe we'll end up working for criminals. Who knows? Who knows? Right? But his own history was that he was working, I believe he came from a Belter family, so did mining, that kind of thing. He worked for this mining company, right? But job was stressful. He left it because he wanted to get out of that stressful environment, wanted a little bit more freedom. His friend Garrett Damocles, and we have found out it is, at the very least, a physical relationship between the two of them. We haven't really established there might also be romance here, but at the very least, uh, so they're very good friends. Garrett Damocles, who his background, uh, career-wise, is a scavenger. So he came from this nasty planet. His abilities are mostly combat and survival oriented. He has a little bit of leadership, but mostly combat survival oriented is what he does. Right. So he is really the warrior of the group. In addition, they have Garrett's old friend, but not really necessarily in the best terms at the moment, Hazel Perrin as well. She has a background as a merchant. Specifically, her skills were in the area of navigation. So she is going to be the navigator on this new scout style ship that we designed in the last session. Now, in addition to those main three, we now have three other people that will be joining them. One is Sonia Newton. So Sonia Newton, in terms of her personality, is more optimistic, is very determined as far as that goes. She also comes from a merchant background. She has very high piloting skill. Her kind of planet of origin was a water world, right? So she would feel very comfortable on Aledhan being a very watery place as far as that goes. Now, in terms of her background, I rolled up just kind of one life event for each of them. She has some kind of useful contact. We can define that if we need to later on. Then we have our engineer, William Goodwin. Also has a background in merchanting, sure. Uh, he he's very good at engineering and also at computers. He has won some recognition, fame for himself. He's also very selfishly oriented, very focused on what he gets out of things. He came from a garden world that was relatively high tech. Then finally, we have Evangelina Singleton. Evangelina Singleton is our doctor, right? She has relatively high medical skill. Her background is as a scientist, right, where she did rise to the level of team lead. She's fairly young, I believe the youngest member of our party at age 23. Right, so yeah, she's 23. Wilbur Orla is 30. Garrett Damocles is 42, so he's a little bit older, and Hazel is 34. So yeah, so Angeline is definitely the youngest. She's also the doctor and the most educated of this group. Her endurance, however, is garbage. So she is really, really good at treating people, but if she's around sick people, she's almost certainly going to get sick. She has to be good at medicine. She also comes from a relatively high tech garden world in terms of her background. Uh, Also, life event. I rolled for her. She ended up with an enemy. We don't know the details about the enemy that much, except that it's somebody who's a victim of her employer. They are upset enough that they would be willing to cause harm, and it's something to do with them losing their job. So in some way, this person blames Evangelina for them losing their job. I'm taking a smear or something in my glasses. All right, so that's part of the background there. All right, so will this stuff come up? Who knows? That's what you do with solo. You don't know what's going to happen. If I knew what's going to happen, I would just be writing a novel. All right, so that is where we are. We are getting on the ship. We are getting ready to travel then to our. We need to make how many jumps do we need to make? Was it two, I believe? So yes, we need to make two jumps to get to Aladon, where we are going to be doing our thing. So let's go ahead and get that rolling. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull out from here. I've got my random tables and my campaign travelers from the solo supplement. So let's see what happens. So we are jumping from world to world. So the first thing I need to do is roll in Starport Encounters table because we do have to leave the Starport. Now we do know that this. Okay, where's the Starport? There's Starport Encounters. We do know that there's a robot uprising going on here, so it's possible that whatever happens here in the Starport may possibly be connected with that if it's in any way disruptive to what we're trying to do. Let's see what we've got here. It's a 6-5. Right, so 6-5, nothing out of the ordinary occurs. I honestly didn't know that was an option on these encounter tables. Okay, so we have apparently been exceptionally lucky in that we have avoided any of the complications that might have come from this robot uprising. Nice. So six of us plus our robot London make it through the starport, get onto the ship, and therefore are ready to jump. But if you have cargo with you as well, we don't sort out costs and fees. At this point, the ship, as far as I know, is owned by our employer. We're not going to worry about the costs and fees. Then we need to roll on the Starship Encounters table. All right, so Starship Encounters. Right now, we are on what would be a major route. So I need to roll 2d6. The main world population here also is going to provide a modifier, potentially. So we need to check that modifier for Masuyama. The population here, I believe, 7. All right, that's not enough to give us an additional +1 here. Okay, so I rolled a 4 right here. 4 indicates none. Okay, so we make it out of the sector without any particular, uh, really anything happening here. Roll in the passenger ship events for an event, except we are not on a passenger ship, so I need to do the non-passenger ship. And then make a reaction roll for the group during jump space. How are they feeling about one another? Okay, cool, cool, cool. I like this. Okay, so we are on a non-passenger ship, so I can skip over here to non-passenger ship events. Let's see what happens here. 24. All right, so 24, a typical trip with highs and lows. This is like the least eventful way I could write on these tables, and it's not very likely. Like I have basically 1 in 6 chance of that nothing happens for the the star which one was it? Starport encounter. I have probably something similar. I'm trying to do the math in my head. Yeah, it's basically the same for uh starship encounter. Non-passenger ship events, though, that is fairly rare for you to actually have nothing much happening. But here we are. All right, so then we are instructed though to do a reaction roll. And so for a reaction roll, that's not how you do a reaction roll, Professor. It's 2d6, 8 or higher, everybody's good. Anything less than an 8 is fairly likely now since I rolled a 3 for the first die. 9. We're all good. Wow. We're all just getting along perfectly well as far as this goes. All right, so I mean, nothing has happened except that we have successfully jumped. All right. So we need to enter then the new star system. Okay, so that is another random table we can roll on. This is an X. So it'll be a frontier route. It's an X starport, so I take -1 on this. 10, 10. So small transport apparently is here. So let's see what type of ship we are going to be encountering that is a small transport. It's a 3d6 roll. So adding this up, 2, 7, 9. 9 indicates as a small corporate craft, right? So that's interesting because this is not really where I would expect to find that. Because, I mean, if this is a small corporate craft, I mean, to me, that indicates it's probably not a stellar craft. This is weird. This is weird. Um, it's kind of throwing me, to be perfectly honest. Uh, Okay, so small transport. Yeah. So that suggests to me there's probably also a larger ship somewhere nearby that this boat would be on, right? So there's a ship somewhere, and this is a boat, right? So encounter. So this is at where are we? 'Cause we're definitely not at our destination yet. We didn't travel that far. We're at Sozalev. So Sozalev, all we know about it, uh, and one is that it obviously doesn't have a starport. It is 708. So there it is. It's a space station that operates with a skeleton crew. It's very quiet, great place for quiet meetings to go unnoticed. Oh, okay. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. So there is definitely a ship somewhere nearby. So I'm just going to mark here we have an encounter, small craft, corporate. Okay. So that is that. But I want to know, how does this ship behave? So we have a ship reaction here that we can make. So for transport ships, again, it's a 3d6. Okay, so I got, this is not a normal roll. I got 16. Cargo and space from that ship, but no ship. Oh, oh, that changes things remarkably. All right, so what we find, right, is jettison cargo. We don't have any space for cargo, but there is jettison cargo. Because we are in an area where there are asteroids and a space station, uh, my guess is somebody came here, was doing a little bit of mining or something like that. So it's probably a small mining craft, and for whatever reason, left just some raw ore floating in space. Very clearly was jettisoned. We don't see the ship itself anywhere, right? So I think that is, so it's small craft corporate. So I'm just saying cargo, specifically ore is what we're finding. No ship. Now, this isn't something that we can really do much about, so that's interesting. But again, not much that we can do about it at this point. So the question is, are we going to stop here? Well, I know we do at least have to skim the um, have to skim the gas giant. We have to do that. But that's it. And then we can move on. So let's go ahead and check to see, because I know it's going to take a little time. So we're going to be spending a day or two here just to let the processing happen. But let's see. So fuel processors, that's something that I believe was in the ship chapter. Spacecraft design, here it is. Okay. Fuel processors, able to refine fuel scooped from a gas giant, convert it to refined liquid hydrogen fuel, convert 20 tons of unrefined fuel in 1 day, 1 ton of fuel. Oh, we're gonna have to be here 2 days then, right? So we're just kind of hanging out here, right, for 2 days. Okay. So one thing that we can do that is something that is in the system is it says if there's a period of boredom or calm, when you're in a slack period, uh, you can call for what they call a spotlight. Right, so what a spotlight is, let me go ahead and pull up here just to double check, because I have the PDF open here for solo. Uh, so exactly how to do a spotlight is what I'm looking for. Because I like to use the, naturally I can just come up with something. But I like, if I'm going to use a system, I like to use that system. I mean, it sounds stupid to say it, but nonetheless, it's true, right? Okay, spotlight. Okay, there it is. There you go. All right, roll a spotlight encounter. Okay, spotlight. Spotlight's case. Sometimes nothing is happening. Uh, the crew is mining an asteroid without incident, for example, or some crew member is not getting any screen time at all. The spotlight involves randomly rolling two words, combining them to create a spotlight on one character. It might be something they're doing or thinking, it might reveal something about their past, or something they're going to do or planning to do. It can even be used to inspire ideas about what two characters might be talking about. Do we have anything else here related to spotlights? Uh, so here's another description of that. A character is high. Okay, this is much later on. It says the character is highlighted by the player who hasn't done much for a while or during a period during which nothing much is happening. Inspiration words are rolled randomly and, when combined together, create a spotlight on the character. You select two of the inspiration tables on pages 28-29 that seem relevant or catch your eye. Combining these theme words might reveal something he or she is doing or thinking. It might reveal something about their past or something they're planning to do. If possible, it has some bearing on the current plot or storyline, but then again, it might not. Such spotlights often reveal something interesting, quirky, dark, or disturbing about a character. If it isn't of use to the player now, it certainly could be later in the game. Record it in the campaign diary. All right, so I think this definitely qualifies as not much happening. I mean, so far everything in the session has gone like literally perfectly. But what we do have on board, right, are three new people who we know very little about. So I think it might be fun to spotlight one of them. I don't know which one. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to roll a d. I'm going to roll a d6 divided by 3, round up, right? And I'm just going to number them, right? So it is Sonia, and then William, and then did I say William before? It's William. It ends with an N, and then finally Evangelina as the last one, right? So it's going to be one of the three of them, and then we'll roll in inspiration tables and find out something out Find out something out. Sure, that's terrible English, but let's go with it. We'll find something out about them that way. So first, three. Three indicates that it's William, right? So Will is the one being spotlighted. Remember, what we know about him is that he is selfish, really just focused on whatever reward he's getting. So he might get along well with Garrett because remember, Garrett wanted to make his fortune in the in the clouds, in the stars, in the stars. He's not a pilot. Um, so let's find out another. His life event is that recognition, fame, or name for himself. So it might be that we learned something about that, maybe. Okay, let's do that. There's actually two things I want to do. So one, I want to do that, and then I also want to roll on the relationship table for him because I want to find out what kind of relationship he has. Because I'm imagining like we have two sets of three. We already know some of the relationships that are holding. Weirdly, Garrett is the one holding together our original three, because Wilbur and he, their relationship, and then we also know that Hazel and Garrett are old friends. I'm not sure whether there's a relationship between Wilbur and Hazel or not. I don't know. But here we have another set of three. And I think these three also have worked together before. That is why Wayne Brock gave them as a unit, right, to help with this ship. Okay, so let's do that. So first thing, I want to find out inspirations. So inspirations. We have a total of seven tables. I need to pick two of them. So there's ship, urban, wilds, personnel, action, theme, and personality. Um, this is something that I want to find out why he's famous. I think I'm thinking flashback or something like that is one thing that's going on. And then I also want to bring relationship into it. I like that. So first, relationship. I'm going to say odds, Sonia, evens, Evangelina. Evangelina. So we know that there is going to be a relationship here, and that these inspirations are going to be tied to that relationship in some way. So let's go here. So we've got William. I'm thinking, just looking, he's an engineer. So let's say ship first. That makes sense. Right? So what is the ship? Something maybe ship and theme? Let's do that. So ship first, two. Oh, this is my origins die. So this counts as a six. Okay, yeah. All right, so 26 for ship. Jump space. And then theme. Let's do theme. 54. Jump space, family. Jump space, family. Hmm. Why would that make him famous? Well, let's bring the relationship into it as well. 61. Secretly in love. Okay. So William is secretly in love with Evangelina. So I'm thinking this actually isn't touching on why he's famous. Right? Um, I'm thinking instead there was some emergency or something like that. Right? Um, how does family play into this? So family jump space. The first thing that comes to mind is somebody being born, right, in jump space. So I mean, maybe William is a jump space baby. Right? So he was born like on a ship. It was in jump space at the time. I think that's just a piece of his background. So that would bring in jump space and um, family. Now we need to figure out why is he secretly in love, right, with Evangelina? What is it about her? So let's go ahead and roll about personality. What does he like about her? 21. Relaxed. All right. right? So I think that what I'm imagining here, right? So we know that William is always focused on a reward. He's selfish, but I can imagine this also leads to some level of neuroticism, right? So that he is anxious quite a bit, right? So I'm imagining, so he is also anxious, but he's comforted by Evangeline, uh, more relaxed presence. Now, I don't think that I mentioned Evangelina's personality before. Um, this is interesting. So her personality is that she talks tough, but is scared inside, right? So I think this is something where like the two of them, there's some interesting similarity there. Okay. So by relaxed, I mean it's actually like this tough exterior. So rather than projecting a tough exterior as like hard and strong, it's more of a don't care, nothing bothers her is kind of the attitude here. So that's the kind of toughness we have here, right, rather than hardness, right? So that's what I'm imagining here. So relaxed, right, presence. So I'm imagining here that like the way that this all gets kind of revealed or why it's relevant on this trip, right, is there's plenty of time for them just to reflect, right? And he is thinking about um, times that naturally things don't always go well. If things always went well, you wouldn't actually need an engineer, right? So the stress is involved, right, with this position, right? And how he has relied on Evangelina for emotional support, right, in those times. Now, naturally, this isn't going to make her feel any better, as far as that goes. Right? But nonetheless, I can imagine that being something that is kind of fed into right, this is him being secretly in love with her, and this suggests that it's probably not, as far as we know, right, requited in any way. Right, so that is what's going on here. As we're taking a couple days now, we scoop some. I want to check out my procedures because I know that I know that sometimes the system requires roles for doing things like scooping from a gas giant, but not always. So like if you read Solo, the Solo supplement does require these roles, but I'm also using Cepheus Universal, so I'm trying to like square these things together. Where I think Solo is really designed with, I think specifically Mongoose Traveler in mind, where Cepheus Universal is designed to be somewhat more general, right? So I'm just checking to see. Okay, here we go, flight operations. So let's check that section. It's around 215 or so. Okay. So 215, flight operations. Just want to see whether it actually requires. Oh, you can also get just water. Do it that way. It says here. Oh, it does actually require pilot roll. So this says for its next trip by. Okay, so gas giant skimming for unrefined fuel takes 3 hours. Requires a routine pilot roll for success. So I know that our pilot Sonia as she is right doing the gas giant skimming. She gets a +3, so you get another +2, so it's a total of +5. This is almost certainly going to work. Yeah, yeah. I think yeah, 11 plus 5 is 16. We only need an 8, right? So she does remarkably well at this. All right. And then, so we get enough fuel for our purposes so we can make the next jump. All right, so I think let's go ahead and make that next jump. And things are happening here at a pretty slow pace, to be honest. Oh, this was something right there. Yeah, I got that from Free RPG Day because I kind of like the basic role-playing system. Um, I've never used it on this channel, and I think I've only ever like tried running anything with it maybe once or something like that because I've not ever actually bought the full thing. It's like I say that in almost every video about something, right? I didn't buy that. I didn't buy that. But in any case, We did successfully skim, so now we can go ahead and make another jump. So I think we're just jumping from world to world again. And let's see if anything happens here, right? So we don't have any cargo with us. We don't have to sort out costs and fees, or we did sort out getting the fuel that we need. So we can roll on the Starship Encounters table again as we are leaving this sector. So back to 2d6. Uh, export 6, and it would actually be a 5 because there's a -1 on that. That's nothing. All right, so no ship encounter. Then roll for an event on our non-passenger ship. 44, no matter which direction you read that in. 44 indicates strange readings on the bridge suggest there might be a stowaway. Wow. How did that happen? I literally have no idea how that would have happened. All right, but and this is something we have to investigate then, certainly. Right, so I think that I'm going to do this through a scene resolution process, right? So we need to come up with a plan first. So on the bridge, our crew is like getting readings, and like it's a small ship. I have no idea where this person would even be hiding, right? Let alone how they got on board. How have they been surviving, right, for the past week? We already did a jump, and now have spent a couple days um, processing fuel. But nonetheless, we get some strange readings that say there might be a stowaway on board, right? So I think that we need to work this out. So we need to come up with a plan. We have a bunch of people here. So who should be involved? Because I can use up to three of them, right? So it makes sense to me. The pilot should stay where she is. Now, Evangeline, she's a doctor. It makes sense she would be involved, and also she has investigate, right, as a skill. So, I mean, investigation normally isn't. This is more like recon, but I'm willing to stretch a little bit, right? So let's go ahead and give her. So we have an investigate roll here. 9 + 1, that's a 10. Yes, so we get a +1 from that. So Evangelina, so +1 from investigation for her, and then I think our engineer and our pilot, one, don't really have any relevant skills, and two are busy. Okay, I can see possibly browsing, maybe if you're trying to like better up to them. Now I think okay, I think Garrett is going to go in with I was going to say gun combat, but his gun got taken away, and I never bothered having them get more. Oh dear. This is going to be a terrible mission when they get where they're going. Mhm. We are not well prepared, it turns out. All right, so Garrett, he is going to try, I guess, using melee combat. He's unarmed, but I'll count that, I suppose. So his melee combat roll, so he's ready to fight whoever. It failed. Okay, so and then finally, let's see. Does Wilbur have something useful potentially? I mean, can he? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no. We're just gonna go with those two. Right, so Garrett and Evangelina, it makes sense the two of them. We have the doctor and we have the warrior. They're going to go and try to find the stowaway. If the person has some kind of medical emergency, we are ready for that. At the same time, if somebody wants to fight, we are ready for that as well. Right, so that is what's going on. How is our plan? Hmm, I'm tempted to say it's shaky. It's going to require a roll of 10, so things could definitely go wrong here. Right, so I'm going to say the plan is shaky. Right. And also in terms of danger level, I mean, this could actually be dangerous because we don't have any clue, right, what this person would have with them. They could be significantly more armed than we are, seeing as we had our guns taken away and we never replaced them. Right. So I'm gonna say it's dangerous as well. This is not a great situation to be in. All right, so we need to roll to resolve the scene. So Evangelina and Garrett are searching where they think the stowaway might possibly be. Thinking about that some, I mean, it makes sense to me. Like we're going to be the least frequented parts of this ship. Let me look. Because I don't have I said not to make a whole plan for the ship, but you know all of these pieces. I mean, okay, typically computers have a room they're in, and I would imagine there would be some space in there to do maintenance on the thing, but I can't imagine people are going into that very often, right? So I'm just making some more notes here for the food processor. All right, okay. So, I mean, I feel like most likely they're going to be perhaps in the computer room. So that would be the place they'd most easily be able to stay. Okay, so let's see what happens. So we roll 2d6 to equal or exceed the required roll, plus 1 for that successful roll. So I get a plus 1 on this. I need a 10 or higher to succeed. We did not succeed, right? So we did not. Okay, what does that mean in terms of failure? I think that means not that we can't find them. It's a small ship. I mean, okay, and it could mean there's nobody there, but it's not clear that'd be a failure of the plan. Kind of the goal of the plan was to find the person. Well, I think maybe to find them and um, get a friendly reaction from them or something like that. So we're trying to pacify them in some way, right? So I think that's more what we're going for. So yeah, it's a failure of a roll. It's it. So next thing we need to do is roll for consequences. So I roll 2d6. Well, first I need to roll 2d6 against the required roll. So if I roll 10 or higher here, then there are no negative consequences. I definitely did not roll 10 or higher here. So then I need to roll the 2d6. It's plus 2 if the plan was a success. It decidedly was not. So this is going to determine what the consequence is. 6. 6 indicates a minor injury. So somebody got hurt. Who was that got hurt? It makes sense. It's going to be either Garrett or Evangelina. Let's say odds Garrett. Evangelina, ooh, oh, that's not great, got a minor injury. So, how bad was this injury? I'm just going to roll. Well, let's see, what kind of damage is it if unarmed combat? Oh, that's a good question. So I need to ask lots of questions at this point. So the first thing, the most obvious thing that happened with this plan is that we did not find the person first. They anticipated us, or they were ready for us, or something like that, so they could ambush us, was the idea. So if there's a minor injury here that suggests they did in fact attack. So let's see if we can figure out kind of the brief about what happened here. Um, oh, can do combat scene resolution. That makes sense. So this is what I'm imagining is happening here. Right, so yeah, so I think that's what I need to do. So the first failure is that we failed to like peacefully interact with them. So instead, what happened was that we entered a combat scene. We had a shaky plan. So now I have another roll I need to make to see whether that combat can go in our favor. So here's what's happening. Shaky plan, that's a 0 modifier. We outnumber the enemy though, because as far as I know, it's a stowaway, so it'd be plus 1. The enemy is green. I think that. Wait. Okay, these numbers I think are reversed from what it should be. Um, yeah. So there's some typos in some of these modifiers on this table I'm looking at. It's not that relevant to you, but it's another 1 modifier if the enemy is either green or elite. This is going to be to our favor, so I'm going to say I get a total of plus 2 on this roll. So I'm looking for 8 or higher to succeed. We got an 8, so we did actually succeed. Okay, that's good. And then now I can roll for the combat resolution. Although we already know this minor. Yeah, I'm just gonna go with that. Right. So we engage in combat. I'm gonna say this person. Okay, let's go through. Like, how well armed are they? Right. So 6 would be very well armed. 1 would be they're actually totally unarmed. 2. Okay. So that leans toward they are maybe using some kind of improvised weapon or something like that. So we're not looking at a lot of damage being done here, which is good. Right. So I'm going to go ahead and roll against Evangelina. I'm just going to roll, say, 1d6 here. Right, so she takes 3 points of damage, right, and that would be against her endurance first. So her endurance is actually totally wiped out because her endurance is so bad, and that's the first thing that gets hit. So her endurance is down to a 0, and then we'll take the rest from, it doesn't really matter whether it's strength or dex, let's just say dex. All right. So the way that gets interpreted, Cepheus Universal, it's been a while since I've had to do any injuries and like injury and recovery, 105. Okay, so this is telling me endurance is 0. So she is injured, and she's also stunned for 1 round. Let's see what kind of effect was here. So she gets knocked down for between 1 and 3 rounds. Right. Okay, so that happens. Now what else do we know? So if endurance is at 0, we know that she's injured. She got knocked down. This is not really that big a deal. So 1 to 3 combat rounds, she can get up again. Nobody's going to leave her down. All right. So in terms of recovery, so medical treatment, if you're injured, okay, for characters who are injured, a routine medical roll is required or average if no medical kit is available, taking 5 minutes, restoring 3 points of endurance. Well, she only has 2 points of endurance to start with. Broken arm or leg can put in a splint. The limb is still debilitating, head injury, blah, blah. We don't have any of that. Failure means no points are restored and those head injury penalties are not removed. Okay. Oh, a routine medical roll is required or averaged if no medical kit is available. So, I mean, it makes sense to me. Evangelina, I didn't bother giving her equipment, but she would have like the standard medical kit. Right, so this would be routine. The problem is that she's doing it on herself, and I think that would add a negative modifier. So I'm thinking here we're just doing a plain 0 mod roll, but she has a +3 on the skill. So she does need to roll a 5 or higher. She's trying to treat herself. She succeeds. Okay, good, good. So her endurance at least is back. That's good. And she's going to have plenty of time, right, to just naturally restore the other point of damage, right? Which I forget what the timing is on this. It's okay. If she can rest, right, then she can get 1 point per day of natural recovery. Because her endurance is just so bad that she would naturally get worse if she had to physically exert herself. Right, so, but I'm going to say that's not necessary. Right, but that means that we now have, very important, we've got a stowaway. So I want to know more about the stowaway. That's something that I am very interested in. So I just kind of want to randomly create this person. Let's do that right now. I was about ready to say, "Do you want to do it?" But then I realized there is no way for you to answer me. I, I, I'm not streaming this. Uh, and when it comes down to it, like you're not going to see this probably for a couple weeks from the time I'm recording. So anyway, let's go ahead and create our stowaway right here. Random character creation. This is turning into a long one, but hmm, you can always pause and come back if you want to, right? That's the joy of the internet. Okay. All right. I feel like I came up with a name for the scout ship, didn't I? I don't know. I think I have it written down somewhere. Oh, actually, yes, I do have it written down somewhere. Oh, yes, the name of the ship, by the way, is the Ingenuity. Okay, so if you were wondering, that's what it is. Okay. Oh, I need to write down over here as well. Wayne Brock, just so that I have a good note of that. All right, our character here. So we found this stowaway. So first thing I want to do is come up with a random name. So random name generator, and here we go. I apparently visit this often. It's Billy Acevedo. So Billy with an IE, so that makes it very gender non-specific here. Acevedo. So let's find out more about Billy. Okay. So I'm just going to do random character creation here, 35. So first, it says initial details. See pages 26 through 27. 26 through 27. Here we go. All right, so name. Gender here, I'm just gonna say odd is male. Okay. So Billy, male. So oh, this is great. We have a Billy and we have a William. William. Right. So, all right. I guess yeah. Let's go ahead and do some of these things. So appearance, notable feature, 8, shirt, a notable shirt. Okay. Well, so what is it that's notable about this shirt? Let's see. I'm gonna go ahead and roll on. I guess personality. Okay, so it's a 14, 14. Talented. So something about their shirt indicates that they have some kind of talent or something, or maybe what it is like they're wearing like a band shirt or something like that. So some kind of entertainer. So talented. So it's an entertainer. It's gonna be real interesting if it turns out Billy is not young, which is very possible. Like education level, we won't find out until later. Height and weight again, we'll find out later. Psych evaluation. What are they like in terms of personality? I mean, apart from they're comically pessimistic and a touch paranoid. Well, I imagine they would be right now. So comically pessimistic, a touch paranoid. So now let's go ahead and determine characteristics. This one, for random character creation, we roll 2d6 down the line, and then that is what their abilities are. Okay, so let's see. I need to make sure I do this in the right order. So first, so we've got strength, dex, endurance, intelligence, education, and social standing. So strength, 7, so very average in terms of strength. Dexterity, 2, so very clumsy. It's a -3 on that one. Uh, endurance, that's a 9, so that's a little above average. That's a +1 from break. Intelligence, 9, also a little above average. So they're not stupid, or he's not stupid. Education, 2, so very uneducated. Okay, so has like the raw intelligence, but just like hasn't even like finished a high school education. And 2 in terms of social standing, so like no social standing whatsoever. Okay, so that's good to know. Now we have a total of 6 roles divided between 2 skill categories, as seems fit. So I'm going to choose the skill categories randomly. Okay, so let's see what they are. So we had a 3 and a 4. This is space ops and technical. So let's find out about. So I'm going to do these 3 rolls. First in space ops. 2 threes and a 5. So that suggests navigation 2. And then the 5 is computer 1. And finally, technical is 1, 2, 3. Technical, so it's comms, mechanical, and electronics. All right. So now let's go back and determine some of these other things. So education level, we said that they're not high school educated. Height and weight, right? So we can use either strength or dex. I kind of make them small, which means using dex. So dex would be the lesser of the two. So multiply that by 3, so it'd be a total of 6. Then we add 154, so 160 centimeters tall. So that'd be like 5 feet or so, I believe, something in that range. Um, what is it? Because what 1 meter is about 39 inches, so make it 40 inches times 1.6. So we've got 50. Yes, it's like 5'2", 5'3", something like that. So a little over 5 feet, I believe. And then in terms of weight, they're not out of shape, right? So that means we take strength plus endurance. That'd be 16 multiplied by 4 gives us 64, and then add 24. So it's 88 kilograms. So short, but that's reasonably stout, if I'm right, because I believe it's 2.2 pounds to the kilogram. So me being an American. So if I double that, we end up with what, 176, add another 5% to it. So this person weighs like 190, 200 pounds, somewhere in that range, right? So, and relatively short. So we're, yeah, so this person is solidly built. Okay. All right. And we know they're not out of shape either, right? So they're solid build at that. I also want to find out what their age is. This is something that I could roll in that. Let's roll it to five. So I've been in the late 30s, early 40s. So age roughly 40 or so. So I want to know more about this person's background. The big thing that I'm wondering is why in the world are they on my ship? Like, what are you doing on my ship? That's I think the question that is going to be asked is what are you doing on my ship? And I think we need to find out what is the reason for leaving the homeworld, which this is a table that we have in Cepheus Universal. I really like this table. And 3-3. Right, so 33, the job pays good, steady money, plus there's fewer people and a lot of wilderness. All right, so what makes sense to me, right? You don't stow away because the money's good. Now, you might stow away to be getting away from debts that you have. Right? So, what I'm imagining, right, is that they're running from debt on Masoyama. It's also very believable that that they also have kind of this desire to explore, that they desire the wilderness, which there is relatively less of on Masoyama. So they're just trying to get away. So I think it's very possible they found out where we're going. Right? So I think that they were hoping to hop a ride to Aledhan where they want to stay. Right? That's really their goal. So that makes perfect sense to me. So I have those notes down now. Okay. So we get Billy. So the question is, what are we going to do with him? Right now that we have him. I mean, I'm going to make the assumption that we have enough provisions and everything. This is not going to create a provisions crisis or anything like that. Uh, Now, note, I think that this all happens before we make our jump. Right, so we are not yet to Alaton. We're in that case, okay, we just drop him off, say, okay, fine, do your thing if that's what you want. Now, like he's going to be with us for another week in jump space. Right, so I want to know what are we going to do with him? I don't have a plan. I have no idea how our people are going to react. So, to me, I think the most important person here in terms of making the choice is going to be our pilot because a relatively small ship, it makes sense to me. The pilot is going to act more or less like the captain in some level. Wait, no. Okay, no. I'm handling this wrong. I need a reaction roll. Is what I need. How are people going to handle this reaction wise? That's the tool that is in our toolkit, which is perfect for this kind of situation. So let's go ahead and pull out the reaction table. Uh, if we get 8 or higher, then there's no bad reaction. People take this all in stride. Otherwise, okay, there we go. Somebody is not going to be happy about this. And let's just roll to find out who it is. Who has the negative reaction? I have people in here in an order. It is Wilbur, Garrett, Hazel, Sonia, William, and then finally Evangelina. Who is it that has the negative reaction? It is actually Wilbur. Wilbur is not okay with this, right? So, I mean, it's possible. Okay, it says that he's a risk taker with the facade of confidence is his personality. Ah, so, I need to find out what kind of reaction he has. So Wilbur is not okay with this. What type of reaction does he have? For he's stubborn. A choice has been made and the character does not like it. They refuse to cooperate unless things are changed. This may not be the result of a large ego, but a passionate belief, a sense of safety or moral duty. It all depends on the current situation. I think what has happened, right, right, is that okay, right. So what I'm imagining here, right, is that Billy snuck on. We know that's the case, right? And the crew has said there's not much we can do. Billy just wants to go to this next planet we're going to, and we drop him off. We don't love it because we don't love stowaways. That there should be justice, right, for stowaways. And I think that that is the tack that Wilbur is taking. Wilbur's saying, no, no, he needs to be punished in some fashion, right, for doing this, because it's not okay. It's not okay to just stow away on the ship when we might not have had the resources to get where we're going. Right? Now, we didn't notice when he was on board for a week, so we're probably okay, right, for the next week. But, but this is an issue. This is an issue. We should not treat this as lightly as people want to treat it. And I think that is something where, like, when it comes down to it, I think that this is going to have an impact on the way that Wilbur and Sonia interact. Because I'm imagining here that Sonia, being the optimistic, determined, with that personality, right, she's on the other side, right? So there is, in fact, confrontation here, which is another set of rules that I can use. So let's go ahead and use that, right? So confrontation, if a confrontation between two characters, in a confrontation between two characters where one character is trying to convince the other, make an 8 plus roll, use these modifiers. So we need to look at what their social scores are. Oh, this is interesting. All right, so I think what's happening here is Sonia is trying to convince Wilbur that no, this is okay, but she has a lower social score. Now, it says you can add diplomat or persuade or leader. Oh, no, we're not trying to convince two or more, so it's one-on-one situation. So diplomat or persuade or something equivalent here, because I don't think that those exact things exist in Cepheus Universal. But nonetheless, she doesn't have anything like this. So she is just going to be rolling. It's just a straight up roll at a -1. We need 8 or higher total. So we need to roll a 9 or more for Wilbur to say, okay, fine. Right? He does not. He is not fine with it. So Sonia has to pull rank and say, well, I'm the pilot that in effect makes me the captain. Tough. You're going to deal with it. So I think that that is the situation here. So we end up with conflict. To write this down. Right, so we have a stowaway. It's Billy Acevedo. The crew decides to ferry him to Aledhan. Wilbur disagrees. And Sonia puts him in line. Now this is a complicated thing because in terms of their social scores, Wilbur comes from a higher place in society than Sonia does. So he is used to, he should be getting his own way with this, is kind of the way that he sees it. But we're in this situation where, like, we're in this little box going through space. Sonia's the pilot and de facto captain because of that. Right? Without her, we would have serious issues getting anywhere that we need to be. Without her, we would not have been able to even make this jump because we almost certainly would have failed to skim that gas giant, right? So that's the situation that we're in. This is not a great situation. Right? Uh, so she can, in fact, pull rank in this little box that they're living in, and Wilbur does not like that. Okay, so we have here a situation which may have consequences down the road. We don't know. Right? So we're going to have to find out as things unfold. Right. So Sonia puts him in line, in effect, pulling rank as the captain slash pilot. So Billy is allowed, right, to continue with them. So now let's pick up where we were. I do want at least to finish arriving at Aledhan, and then we'll deal with it there. Right, so we did the non-passenger ship event. We now enter this new system. We get to Aledhan a week later. Roll on our Starship Encounters table, see if there are any starships here. Probably not, because remember that there is no starport here, right? So odds are good that so that is is a 3, but then a -1 on top of that. So it's yeah, there's definitely no encounter here at first, and that is that. So we um, I think that it makes sense because we have to drop this person off. We are, in fact, going to land on Aledhan, which I don't know that we were necessarily going to before, but this time we will. Since we're landing there anyway, and it's a water world, it makes sense. Let's stock up on some water, which we can then refine into fuel, and that can get us back home. So we are there on Aledhan. That's where we're going to pick up next time, maybe for another very long episode. We'll see on Prof. E Plays. Thanks for watching. Prof. E signing off.